This is Gemara Pesachim Daf Chav Zayin, and the learning for Chedeshel is sponsored as a Schos Ilu Nishmasa for Leirasha Bas Arya Leib, as well as Schos Ilu Nishama for Arya Leib and Yaakov. Their Neshama should have an aliyah from all the learning of the entire Chabura. Of course, all the Chelim Yechaim Nuchas Ben Amalki Demir Ben Akir Chaim Emmanuel Ben Vega Chaim Starch on Sivin Reizel Zarbas Kennedy Bat Sims Chai Sari Zachari Chaim Seresna yourself Ben Mindel Leir Devin Shavleir Shem Bas Navi Shavik Shuvachan Valdam Nitri V'Dinim Chan Reizel Libracha Bat Sevia Musha Chel Sivar Ben Theli Huva B'Say Shachli as well as Chosivar Gatalia Bas Ita. Just some good news. The two of our Chelim, one of them Baruch Hashem is recovering 90% and is at home, so his name is in removed 99%. The other one, the young boy that has leukemia, Baruch Hashem, is doing fabulous. We pick it up on the bottom of Chavav and the base. We're going to go up a little bit. We're going to start for the two dots, L'yasik Boy. And again, just one more time, people are enjoying. I hope other people as well join along for our 4-minute quick recap, which again puts everything into perspective, jogs the brain, gives a little bit better of a grasp of the daf. So let's pick it up. Chavav and the base, about 12 lines from the bottom. First word in the line is V'loi. V'loi Yasik Boy. So we said in the Mishnah, we're continuing the theme. We've been discussing Isuria, no, all the different dinim of it. So now said the Mishnah that you're not allowed to fuel the oven with it. So says the Gemara, Tanur Rabbanan, we started this yesterday. This is going to be really the theme of the entire day's daf. So Kedai, it's worth to go back a few lines. Tanur Rabbanan. Tanur Shetzikua Beklibi Arlo. You have an oven that was fueled with the shells of Arla, which of course are forbidden, or with the straw of Klai HaKerem. So the first part, so the Mishnah, let's break this price into 3 parts. Part number 1 says the Braisa. Chadash Yutatz. Yashan Yutan. If it's a new oven, you have to destroy the whole oven. If it's an old oven, then you just let it cool down. Din number 1. Din number 2 in the Braisa. Let's say you baked bread in this oven where the fuel was a forbidden source. Rabbi Amar Abbas Asur v'Chamar Abbas Muteres. Machlek is Rabbi and the Chachamim. Part number 3 is Bishlak Gabi Achalim. Let's say you heated up the coals with this forbidden item, and now you have the coals which are using for cooking. Divrei Hakol Mutter. Everyone agrees it is Mutter. So again, 3 parts of the Braisa. Part number 1 taught us that if it's a brand new oven, you have to break the oven. What's the reason? Because the first time an earthenware oven is used, it solidifies, it hardens the oven, and therefore it's called getting a direct benefit, a real tangible benefit from the Yisra. Now, therefore that is forbidden. The second part of the Braisa is talking about what about the bread that is baked in there, which will be a big part of today's discussion. Machlekes Rebbe use mach with a chum or a mekel. And finally, if you have coals that were heated from that item, and now that coals used to heat something else, that's going to be mutter. So first we begin with the first part of the Braisa that says that if it's new, you have to break it. If it's old, then you let it cool down. V'atan, you learned in a different Braisa. B'chadash bin yashin yutzan. Just let it cool down. Says the Gemara leikasha haRebbi v'Rabbanan. One is Rebbe, one is the Rabbanan. Says the Gemara they can't be. Even the Sham say the Rebbe. Which Rebbe in the Rabbanan of the Braisa? Rebbe that said that the pas is aser, he's going to be like the first Braisa, which says you have to break the oven. The Chacham that said the bread is mutter is going to be like the second Braisa that says you don't have to let the oven cool down. Says the Gemara, but 1 second is the integral difference. Eimer, the Sham said the Rebbe. When did Rebbe say his din is on the bread? Mishum the shvach eitzim bipas. This bread was cooked by this forbidden fuel. The bread itself contains an element of the forbiddenness in it. So that's why Rebbe says it's aser. Zev zegarim misham isla. But in the case of the oven, it's zev zegarim. What fabulous, tremendous words what Rebbe says did. What is this concept of zev zegarim? So to make a very large and perhaps difficult story in a very simple form for what we have today, zev zegarim means that you have an item that are getting two zeh and zeh, 2 different items are fueling it. So this oven, for example, was created by a forbidden fuel source that fired up the oven, that made the oven stark, that made the oven strong. That's why the first Braisa simply says forbidden. So why does the second Braisa say it's okay? Because when you rebake in that oven, you cook in that oven, what happens? You put new fuel in. That new fuel is not forbidden. So now you have 2 items contributing to the final source. You have the fact that the new fuel is permissible items, and you have the fact that the oven was hardened by what? By something that was forbidden. So how do you view that? Says the Gemara, in that case, perhaps Rebbe would agree it is mutter. Therefore we don't have a raya the Rebbe is yet the first Madamar that says that the new oven has to be destroyed. Which, of course, everyone's listening correctly. We're basically breaking down this case into two stages. Stage number one is you made the oven. The oven was hardened with a forbidden source. That was incorrect. But now, since every time you're going to have to bake in the future, you have to put a new fuel, which, of course, you can use good fuel. That's why the Gemara wants to say perhaps it's going to be different. So it can't be Rebbe and the Rabbanan. Eloloi Kasha, how do we answer the Stira? Rabbi Laza or Rabbanan? It says the Gemara, great. Hey, Rabbi Lazar, which din of Rabbi Lazar? Elim Rabbi Lazar, the Sa'ar, the Lazar of the din of Sa'ar of yeast, as we're about to see. Ditanan, like we learned in the Mishnah. Sa'ar shal chulim shal truma shal avlatech isa. You have chulin and you have truma. They got of yeast. They got mixed together with a dough. Each part of the yeast, it takes a certain quantity of yeast to allow the dough to rise. So the quantity for the chulin and the quantity for the truma was not enough to let the dough rise. However, but the two quantities together of the truma and the chulin were enough to make a rise. So how do we view this? Again, as everyone starts to see already, this is a level of zev gairim. You have the truma and you have the chulin both fueling to allow this bread to rise. Says Rabbi Eliezer, Omer, Achar, Acharoin, Aniba. You have to the last one, whichever one you put in last. If it was the Truma, it's Truma. If it was the Chulin, it's Chulin. Chachamim Aimrim, Bein Janafal Isser. Lechatchila, Beishnavel Isla B'Saif, whenever the Isser fell in, whether the Isser fell in at first or the Isser fell in at last, Lo Ilamina Yasser, say the Chachamim, it's not going to be forbidden. Moving along to Chav Zayin and Aleph, until when? Until there is enough in that item to make the mixture forbidden. Okay, so we have a brisa. We have a discussion over here. How do we view this yeast, that's this leavening agent of truma and chulin? Which one is the contributing factor? Rav Eliezer said we go by the last one. The Chachamim say no, we go by whichever one causes it. So says the Gemara now. Va'amar Abaye. So now Abaye modifies this brisa. Lo Ishanu, says Abaye el shekodam v'sila kesa iser. This is only if what you came and you remove the Isser. Says Abaye, when did Rav Eliezer say that if the Chulin falls in, for example, let's say the opposite, if the Truma falls in, and then the Chulin falls in, says Rav Eliezer it's considered Chulin and it's permissible, says Abaye, but that's only if right after the Chulin fell in, you remove the original Truma. So now we know that what's causing this dough to rise, the Chulin that fell in right now. So says Abaye, that is the explanation of Rav Eliezer that says we go after the last item. Avol, says the Gemara. Let's say you didn't remove that. Aser, it's going to be forbidden. So says the Gemara, we have a beautiful proof. Alma, what do we see? Zev goyrim is aser. Because we see if you did not remove the forbidden item, then Abaye is holding it is forbidden. Why is it forbidden? Because you have a fuel source, you have something that's causing it to rise. You have a yeast of a forbidden item, a yeast of a not forbidden item. It says Abaye that's aser. A raya there, Eliezer is the mandamar of the first brisa that says Zev Zegarim is aser. Says Gemara, how do you know this? 4 lines down. Umimai? The time Rav Eliezer Abaye, excuse me, how do you know Rav Eliezer holds like Abaye? Now what? That Abaye explained Rav Eliezer's din was only if you remove the Isser. Tilmatam Rav Eliezer Mishom Da'achar on Aniba. Maybe Rav Eliezer says, like his word said, go with whatever's last. Not some fancy din says Abaye because you can remove the other item. No. Rav Eliezer says, go with whatever an item was last. Does not make any difference. Avol, what would Rav Eliezer hold? Maybe Rav Eliezer would hold if both items are inside, then it'll be permissible. Meaning maybe Rav Eliezer will hold Zev Zegarim is mutter. And the only reason over here you're saying is because we're allowed to go with whatever which is last. Says the Gemara, we do not have a raya. The Rav Eliezer is of the opinion that Zev Zegarim is aser. Elo, says the Gemara, Rav Eliezer Dati Asherah, which if you remember back on Chavav and the base, Gemara said it's the, how do we answer the stira? So first we said it's Rebbe and the Chum and that didn't work. Then we said it's Rav Eliezer. Which Rav Eliezer? The first attempt Rav Eliezer did not work. Says Rav Eliezer, Gemara, the second attempt Rav Eliezer. El Rav Eliezer, the Asherah, the Atzi Asherah, the wood of the Asherah tree, which we already learned previously, was a tree that was worshipped for Avodah Zarah. The Tanah we learned in the Mishnah, not the Leimen who eats him. You take from that Asherah tree, wood, branches. Asur now you cannot get benefit. Let's say you fuel the oven with those branches of Avodah Zarah. Chadash, if it's a new oven, you have to destroy the oven. Yashan, if it's an old oven, Yatsan, gives it let it cool off. Off a bais abas. Now the Braisa continues. Let's say you go and you baked bread in this oven that was fueled by avodah zarah wood. Asurim ba'ana. Then you cannot get any benefits. Nis arva ba'achayres. Let's say this item that was cooked in this oven, which is aser, got mixed with other breads. Ba'achayres, they all got mixed together. Kulan asurim ba'ana. They're all aser ba'ana because you have an item inside this bread which is avodah zarah bread, a bread that was fueled by avodah zarah. So even though it got all mixed, it is forbidden. Rav Eliezer Aimer comes in Rav Eliezer and he says, Yolich achar, yolich, I'm sorry, yolich, hanas liyam hamelech. Says Eliezer Chiddush, you're allowed to take off one part of this bread, throw it to the Yam HaMelech, let it get destroyed. And we'll say that was the part of the bread which had the Kedusha at it, and then the rest of it, you're going to be allowed to go use in the normal fashion. So says the Gemara, what do we see clearly? Amar Loi, the Chum said, no way. Ain't pinning avodah zarah. Racham said, what are you talking about? That doesn't work. Can't be paida. You can't redeem avodah zarah by throwing part of it in the ocean. So what do we see clearly? We see that Rav Eliezer. So now it's not so clear as Rashi points out. It seems in this brisa we had the Tanakama of the brisa. We had the first part of the brisa over here, which the brisa was discussing that. What's going on with this fuel source of the Asherah tree? And then the Brisa continued that Rav Eliezer said you could save it. But we don't know what does Rav Eliezer hold about the first part of the Brisa. So then Rashi says the Gemara is assuming for the fact that Rav Eliezer argued on the end and says you could fix it by throwing it into the Yam HaMelech, shows us that if you did not throw it into the Yam HaMelech, Rav Eliezer agrees that it's all aser. What's this? The case of Zev and Zev Gairim. You don't know which bread is here. Some of these breads are mutter, one of these breads is aser. And here Rav Eliezer is saying it is forbidden. Says the Gemara, the Saraya that Rav Eliezer holds, Zev and Zev Gairim is forbidden. It says the Gemara, no raya. Maybe over there it's true. In that day, Rav Eliezer did concur that when you have a mixture of avodah zarah fueled bread and other bread is all forbidden. You know, except avodah zarah, it's very chamer. Isura b'shari, isurin shavatayra mishamisla. We have no proof. Elam Kain. So fine. So Gemara says you have no raya. It's Rav Eliezer because maybe Rav Eliezer only says it didn't over there by avodah zarah. Says Gemara, no, you can't say that. Elam Kain Amar Tarmayos. Who's going to be the opinion? We have a steer in prices. We're trying to figure out who's the first brisa that holds Zev Zeh Goyim. Love him on the Amar can't be. Must be Rav Eliezer. V'oid, and now the knockout punch is Hatanya Behedya. We have a price that says V'chein. Sorry. We just lost Amir. Let's go back over there. We have a price that says what? In all Isurin. So concludes the Gemara, that first brisa, which said that you are not allowed to get benefit in the form of Zev Zeh Goyrim, that is going to be Rav Eliezer, and he holds this din not only by avodah zarah v'atzei Asherah, but even in all Isurin of the Torah. Says the Gemara, okay, Amar Abaye, let's go back to our original din. If you hold that a dual fuel source is forbidden, Rabbi and Rav Eliezer comes to the Rabbi is Rav Eliezer. They're both holding this din that this dual fuel source is forbidden. And what's the reason over here? It's aser. In our original brisa, why was the bread forbidden? The bread was forbidden because you have a tangibility, you have the actual wood of forbiddenness, wood of that is aser bana, that's considered inside the bread. Says Abaye, but I'll tell you a different thing. Honey, kairos, kaises, usluches, you have cups and bowls and plates, asiri. In those cases, everyone agrees it is aser. What's the reason? Because over there, it's like zevzeh gairim. You fueled up, you put up a fire with something that's forbidden, and you made a cup in it. The cup's not nice and hard. So that cup, how are you going to use it? However you want. You're going to take that cup, and you're going to make tea inside. You can put liquid inside it. Is that cup going to be used with a permissible fuel source? Not necessarily. Says Rav Eliezer, by those items everyone agrees, it's going to be forbidden. Again, because that's going to be similar to the bread that accepted the benefit from the item that's forbidden. Keep believing what's the machlekes mitana or kedera. A pot and an oven. It's going to be forbidden. Again, let's say the oven. Let's explain one more time. It was fueled and created by something forbidden. But then on the other hand, every subsequent usage of the oven, you have to put in permissible fuel source. Shari is going to be mutter. Okay, very good. Says the Gemara, a second lashon. Ika diamri. I'm sorry, we're having issues here today. One more time. Let's get our daf back. Here she is. Says the Gemara, Ikadi Amri, a second lashon. Afilu mandamar zevzeh gairim alt mutter. Even according to mandamar that says when you have a dual item, two different items, fueling and a creation work, it's mutter. Kedera is aser. Why is it kedera aser? So we know why the place the cups, those are forbidden because they don't use heat again, but a pot uses the heat again. Says the Gemara, no. Da kabla bishula makman denesin that teira. There's also a permissible usage because a pot, before you put it on the fire, what do? It has food inside of it. So since that's called a usage, so the pot is going to be forbidden because when it was created with the forbidden fuel source, that fuel, it's no longer going to get anything else, and therefore that's going to be the reason why it's going to be mutter. Amar Yosef, Amar Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, says the Gemara 5 lines before the wide lines in Chav Zayin and Aleph. Tanur shesiku beklibe arlo b'kaishin shel klai karem was fueled with the shells of arlo or with the straw of klai karem. So this is going to sound very similar to our original brisa, but this says the Gemara is the din of Shmuel. Chadash, if it's a new oven, then what? Yutas. If it's a new oven, then what do? You got to destroy it. Yashan, if it's an old oven, then what do? Says the Gemara, Yashan Yutzan. Just let it cool off. If you make bread in this oven, Rebbe Oimer Apas Muteres Chamer Apas Asura. Carbon copy, identical price with one problem. Rebbe and the Chamer swapped. But Tani Ibcha says the Gemara Shul Ibcha Tani. First there it says you're right. Shmuel learned it backwards. V'Ibayzema Ba'alma K'Savar Shmuel Halachic Rebbe Chavira. Generally we paskin like Rebbe. So if we paskin like Rebbe in our original brisa, what's that going to mean? What did Rebbe hold? Rebbe hold the pas is aser. However, now when he argues with the rabbin, but in this case, afilu mechavi rav. In this case, you're going to pass like Rebbe that it's forbidden, even though the Chachamim hold it's mutter. V'savar, so Shmuel held asnayu imcha keicha denekim rabbanan li'isura. Shmuel purposely learned it backwards. Shmuel was nervous. If he says Rebbe says it's aser, Chachamim say it's mutter. People might follow the Chachamim that it's mutter. As Rashi points out so beautifully, that people are going to say, "Oh, what's Shmuel talking about?" Le'yaminuli. The people aren't going to believe it. Me says Shmuel and Rashi 2 lines to the bottom, and that's why Shmuel purposely learned it backwards. But it's the same thing as our Mishnah. We're going to pass like Rebbe that it's going to be forbidden. Says the Gemara 4 lines to the bottom. Bishla al gavi gacholim davar. If you bake it on top of the coals, again the coals that were fueled from something forbidden, everyone agrees that bread is mutter. Smoldering coals without a fire, coals that are on the way out. That's when everyone's going to agree the bread is going to be mutter. But if the coals are still flickering, there's still some flames to them, asur, and everyone agrees it's aser. No. Even when they're flickering, it's still going to be mutter. Says the Gemara. Let's analyze this. While the coals have some flames to them, asurin. Why? You know why it's forbidden? Because inside these coals, there's the wood that's forbidden, fuel the coals, and now that's going directly into the bread. So that's called that the bread gets a benefit directly from the forbidden fuel source. Pass to aser. Pasta aser. What's the reason why in the case of the bread it's going to be forbidden? Cause it's going to be the benefit of the bread inside, the benefit of the forbidden item inside the bread. What's this according to Rebbe? So Rebbe's gonna have to learn the case of that price and be a little bit different. There's an actual fire opposite. It says Gemara 1 second, moving along to Chav Zayin and Beis. The Rabbanim are going to agree and permit, even when there's a fire there, no way that a fire fueled by arla, fueled by something forbidden, which is going directly into the bread, no way the Chav are going to be makel. Ella says Gemara eats in the Yisur Rabbanan Eichemish Kachazda. If the Rabbanan are makel, what case are they going to be machmer on? If there's a raging fire for something forbidden, they're still going to be makel on the bread. What case are they going to say it's aser? Says the Gemara Bishar Shifa. When it comes to the bench, when you have something that's aser of arla, of something that's forbidden to get benefit, and you create an actual item from it, a chair, a bench, then sitting on it, that's called getting benefit. But Chamer are going to hold any form of sreifa, for burning it is not called benefit. That's why they're going to be makel. Ba'imine, says the Gemara, continuing Chazayim Beis 4 lines down. Ba'imine, remember Chachamim Rav Chisda. Tanur says go about say hektish. You have an oven that's fueled with hektish. V'ava ba'yabas you break bread. The Rabbanan desharu. According to the Rabbanan that say it's mutter. Become ma'isa mai. What's the case going to be? Whoa, what's going on over here? Why is this case going to be different than the case of Arla? Says the Gemara, Omar Rava, Rava explains, Achi Ashta. Arla betela b'masayim. Arla is bottled with 200. As we explained yesterday, Arla and Kalayim have a special limud because they're not only Aser and Achila, they're Aser and Ano. Rashi taught us that's called a kefil. It's a doubling. So you need twice the amount to be bottled. You need 200 times. Hektish afilu be'elef loy bottle. But Hektish is even more than that. We yesterday spoke out, there's Bittul B'Shishin, there's Bittul B'Meya, there's Bittul B'Masayim in 200, but a Hektish is even in 2,000, even in 1,000, Hektish is never bottled. That's the reason why you're going to find the differentiation between Hektish and Arla. Elamar Rava, so Rava says, you know you should ask me. Ikashli Akash. This is the question. V'alei Moal Hamasik, the one that put it on fire, he was over in Me'ilah. Plecha Damal Hamasik Nafki Lechulin. We should have a miracle that happens over here. You light this item on fire. What happens when you light it on fire? Again, we're talking about a tanur, an oven that is fueled with hektish wood. So what's going to happen? The moment you light it on fire, the moment you get benefit for something of hektish, what's halacha? That's called Me'ilah. You were over in Me'ilah. You did the wrong thing. You used hektish for a mundane purpose. But you know what happens right now? The moment you use hektish for a mundane purpose, nafkilu lechulin. It's considered chulin. It's no longer considered holy, and therefore you should know you should be able to get benefit from this item. Why is it forbidden? Amar Abba, Hacha ba'atzei shlamim askina. We're talking about wood of a carbon shlamim. Believe it, Rabbi Yehuda da Amar hektish b'shoygeg mischalel b'mezid einay mischal. When it comes to hektish b'shoygeg, then it is mischal. It does lose its sanctity. B'mezid not my taima. Mezid my taima lo yikim the lav bar mi'ilahu. Since you're never over mi'ilah. It's one of the halachas of mi'ilah. You're not over if you do b'mezid. You only over if you do b'shoygeg. Therefore lenafki l'chulin. Therefore, it's not going to go to chulin. Shlamim nami, says the Gemara. Shlamim nami, I'm sorry. Kivan de lav bar me'ilah. A shlamim can be over me'ilah. Lo inavki l'chulin, not going to go to chulin. And that's the reason why it's going to forbid all the contents inside this oven, forbid the bread afterwards. Says the Gemara. 1 second. You just taught me a rule. What was the rule you just taught me? That anytime you're over me'ilah, you did something wrong. But then the result's going to be that the item goes out to chulin. Is that true? Vatani learned in a brayso called an israfin, eifar and mutter. Anytime you burn something, it's eifar is mutter. Chutz me'atzeh ashira, ve'eifar hektish. What eifar hektish? That's the question. We see the ashes of hektish. We see you're not allowed to get benefit. Why not? The moment you use the ashes of hektish and you burnt it, it should be called me'ilah. Now you should be able to use it. Says the Mar Loila Maser. Ve'eifar hektish of Loila Maser. So what are you going to do? That's Gemara's question. You know what the case is? The case of fire happened on its own. So you know it was over Me'ilah. Since no one was over Me'ilah, that's the reason why the ashes are still going to be forbidden. Rav Shemai Omar, second Eretz, Ba'isir Shatun and Giza, we're talking about the ash, the hektish you need to bury. The Tanya v'samu benachas v'samu shkulai v'samu shaloi yifazer. All the din that we learn out that you have to actually. It's going to be required geniza. That's the reason why you're going to have to bury it. That's what the din is going to be different. Let's just begin the next Gemara, even though this is really going to take this into tomorrow's daf, Shabbos' daf. Let's just create a aschala. What do we say in the Mishnah? Rav Yehuda ein beer. What was Rav Yehuda's din? The only way to destroy chametz, back to Pesach. Everyone, let's get our calibrations back. Back to Pesach. How do you burn chametz? Rav Yehuda says only with a fire. Says the Gemara, time to the Brayso. Rav Yehuda ein beer chametz elos treifa. Only with burning. V'adin noiser, it's kavachaymer. Uma noiser sheina b'vali rabali matzah noiser when you leave over a carbon. You're not over bali rabali matzah yet. What's that halacha? Tol and streifa, you have to burn it. Chamish yesh bali rabali matzah l'kolshkin, certainly you have to burn it. Shatan l'kolshkin shatan streifa. So Amar Loi, the Chum responds to Rav Yehuda, they hold you don't have to burn it. Kol din shatadan v'tzchi lasli lahachmer. If you find a din that you're going to create a chumrah, but b'sayfai lakel is going to create a leniency. Einoy din. It's not a good kavachaymer. Why? Because what's going to happen? If you don't find water, you're going to think, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I can't burn it. You can yeshivu batal. V'atayra Amar, and the Torah says that shmisu sarmi batechem. B'chol davar. Get rid of the sarmi batechem in any way possible. B'chol davar sha'ata yachla shmisai. And that's the reason why, say the Chachamim, we disagree with your din, Rav Yehuda. Chaz Rav Yehuda v'danu din acher. She says, I'll tell you another kavachimer. Noiser aser ba'achila, v'chametz aser ba'achila. Okay, noiser, so now you leave over, you're not allowed to eat. Chametz, you're not allowed to eat. Man, noiser b'sreifa, just like they have to burn. Chametz b'sreifa. Amrulai, so chamer responds to Rav Yehuda. Nevela doichiach. We're going to conclude with this. Nevela ish asura ba'achila. Ve'enai tuna sreifa. Even though you can't eat it, you don't have to burn it. Amr lehen. Rav Yehuda responds. Hefresh noiser. Aser ba'achila ubehana. That's the difference. V'chametz aser ba'achila ubehana. Ma noiser ta'an sreifa. V'chametz ta'an sreifa. Amrulai, and again tomorrow we'll read this last few words again. Amrulai chamer responded. Shar nizkal yochiach. Shas ba'achila ubehana. Ve'enai ta'an sreifa.